The last 2 years of gardening almost took me out. Deer, heavy rain, clay soil, it was a mess. But instead of giving up, I decided to change the way I garden. And today, I'm going to show you one of the biggest change that I'm making this year. I'm switching 65% of my garden to raised beds this year. So before I go into any details, let me say this. February is actually the perfect time to rethink your garden layout. You know, you're in that weird in-between stage. It's too early to plant a whole lot of stuff outside. The temperature is still bouncing around and the soil is really cold. But it's not too early to plant. It's not too early to build, and it's not too early to make changes that's going to set you up for success when spring actually hits. While I'm waiting on the temperatures to rise, this is what I'm doing. Some of the behind the scenes work. You know, building beds, moving things around, and getting the garden ready for the season. So let me start with why I chose to go with raised beds over in-ground this year. Because it wasn't just a random decision. It was a response over the last 2 years of problems that I couldn't ignore anymore. First, the soil, my native soil, is mostly clay. And clay, well, it's great for pottery, but not so much for tomatoes. Clay actually holds a lot of water. And when I mean a lot of water. And when you combine that with the heavy rains, you get soggy soil that never dries out. Tomatoes hate that, peppers hate that, and honestly, most warm season crops want a drainage that's a little better, not mud. So every big rain that we had, my plants were basically sitting in a bathtub. Over the last 2 years, we've had unseasonably high amounts of rain. That's how you get root rot. And that's how you lose plants that were otherwise healthy. So the raised bed solved the immediate problem and the biggest advantage control of all. In raised beds, I get to control the soil mix. I control the drainage, I control the texture, I can build a growing environment that actually supports the plant instead of actually drowning them. The difference is huge. Raised beds warm up faster in the spring. They also drain a whole lot better. They don't get compact real easy. They give you consistency, which is something I've really never had before in this clay soil. If you saw my previous video, also, that I invested in a 6-foot privacy fence around this entire backyard. That was my deer solution. I'll put a link in the bottom down in the description if you actually want to watch that video. So now, between the fence keeping the deer out and raised beds actually giving me control over the soil, I kind of feel like gardening is on my terms now. I'm not fighting nature every single day. It's honestly the first time in 2 years that I've actually felt excited. And gardening is supposed to be a stress reliever, not a stress instigator, right? So let me tell you what I'm actually going to plant in these raised beds. For me, raised beds are perfect for anything that really needs consistent drainage and a loose, fluffy soil structure. These raised beds are going to get tomatoes, peppers, probably some leafy greens, and some root crops like carrots and probably some herbs as well. These plants that struggle the most in my clay soil, honestly, I think they actually deserve better. I'm not going to go 100% raised beds. Some of these plants actually like being in the ground. I'm planting in the ground this year as well. Squash, cucumbers, melons, corn, and maybe potatoes that's still up in the air. Some of the stuff that likes to spread out and have a lot of space, these plants can actually handle this native soil that I have just a little bit better than most. They don't mind a little extra moisture as much. I live in North Texas, so once those spring rains run through, we don't get a whole lot of summer rains. Some of these crops that we plant in the ground are going to be some of the later crops. The stuff that we're going to try to plant early, we're going to put them in these raised beds. All right, so let's talk about the soil mix that I'm going to be using, because this is where the raised beds really shine. I'm using a simple, reliable mix that works for almost everything. This is going to be 1 part compost, 1 part topsoil or garden soil, and 1 part coarse material like maybe peat moss, or you could actually use cocoa coir. This gives me drainage, gives me nutrients, and it gives me structure. Everything clay soil doesn't give me. And the best part, I can actually tweak it some. If you want more drainage, I can add more coarse material. If I actually want more nutrients, then I can add a little bit more compost. Total control over my soil. So I'm going to be honest, switching to raised beds wasn't just a practical decision. It was actually an emotional one. After 2 years of losing plants to things I had no control on, I needed a win. I needed a setup that actually gave me a fighting chance. So February is actually a great time to be starting these kind of decisions. The next decision that I'm actually making, it's actually time to start seeds for the first plants of the season, and that's tomatoes and peppers. In my next video, I'm going to show you exactly how I start my seeds indoors, step by step. I'm going to walk you through the trays, the soil, the watering, and why I use heat mats to get a strong, healthy pepper and tomato seedling. So if you're wanting to start peppers or tomatoes by seeds and you're not sure how, you'll actually want to watch this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow gardeners. Thank you for all of you that have been following me through this horrible journey of starting over. And like always, keep it growing.